put them in boxes in order. You tell me you have one a United States stamp number such and such, I could see if I had it.
Mm-hmm.
But every country I ever heard of, and many I hadn't heard of. No,
But that's, again,
another whole story.
My question was, you've got a lot of documents, a lot of letters. Would you like to see those eventually go someplace for historians or social scientists or anybody to be able to research and look at?
Well, it's going to be a very limited audience for such a thing, I'm afraid.
Well, certainly it is a very specific audience that, you know, somebody who's looking to find out about immigrants and first generation, second generation.
See, and of course everybody makes so much of, you know, he came in 1845 or whatever, you know, way back there. Mine didn't come that early. The Mr. Schultz, who started that Schultz Garden over there in Austin, he was here by 1860 because he was in the Civil War. And he was a stepfather of my mother's father. So unfortunately, that land where they came from is back and forth between Poland and Germany. And at the moment, I was there on my last trip to Germany in 1887. My last trip, I never thought I was going to make another one because I wasn't going to be greedy. I had been there that many times, 5 times already. And
you were there in 82 and 87?
Yes. In 87, the Lutheran magazine advertised that Reverend Herbert Brokering, who was a very talented author, he did some writing and music composition, and he was a Lutheran pastor, and he was going to lead a group of 48 women, turned out to be 49. And he was taking us to all these places that Luther had anything to do with. So one of the places that we went, of course, was to the Wartburg Castle, which was where Luther was served a time that he used for translating the Bible, thereby standardizing the German language according to what he heard on the streets. That's the story about it, as brief as I can say it. And so it was, you know, in the very room that supposedly he was locked up in. And that was the steepest hill I had ever climbed. And from up there you had a good view of quite a distance around. You know, for me to accidentally find another husband in a Lutheran pastor, wasn't that something else? I thought it was.
Very small world.
Couldn't believe it. And he was born in New York, not in New York City. New York, Utica, New York was his birthplace.
So you were there in 82 with your trip with the author Bob Robinson.
Yes.
In 87, it was because of a magazine.
Yes, you see, I read there that they would be going into East and West Germany and Poland and Czechoslovakia. Well, I hadn't been in Czechoslovakia, and I hadn't been in Poland. Now, I was on the border of Poland and Germany when I was with Bob Robinson, because guess what? Who was going to be there in Görlitz, which is on the border. You know, the city sits actually on the border. Part of the time you're in Poland, part of the time you're in Germany. That's where one of the two places that Billy Graham went with his usual way of doing, with a big to-do, you know. He preached there, and I went to the person where I was in charge of the housing we were in, the cousins I was with. They had something else planned that day, and he was just, you know, really interested in getting to all these places where he had found families that fit into his story that he has in those books. Well, he already had a local person who was going to help him at the church of our grandparents that day, but he didn't have to have me, and I just chose to, you know, make some plans of my own, and I told this pastor who was in charge of this little hotel where we were staying that if he knew of anyone who was going to hear Graham who had room to take me, I would really appreciate the opportunity to go. And so I would love to know, was I the only American who was in that audience? But that was an interesting evening.
82?
No, 87. 87.
Okay, 87.
And we were together 3 weeks. That was a 3-week tour. But my ticket was good for 60 days. So guess what? I stayed 60 days.
That was a 60-day trip. That was a long one.
Yes. But you see, the trip was 60 days. Well, you see, I had, the first trip I made was 90. I was
9 weeks.
9 weeks.
And that was the one with the 72 teachers.
Right. And they came from all over the United States. But then a lot of them, there were quite a few who were native Germans too.
The 400 slides that you referred to, those were pictures that you took along your trips, and you used that to in your classroom?
That's right. That was the main purpose. You know, we went into so many places. I was trying to pick up something the other day. Well, we were in the steel mill, right where the work is done, and it was kind of cute that it's been a long time since I've been down here. I always remember, you know, certain little things that stick to your mind. So remember that the men were so proud of their fine restrooms that they had, because this was all built new after the war. Those men could come nicely dressed to work, change into their work clothes in that steel mill, and then there was all this intense heat and everything, you know, and then they had this wonderful big place to go and get cleaned up and go home in fresh clothes. They were so proud of that.
And where was the steel mill? Where was the steel mill?
In the area of Essen. It was Tyson steel